Okay, hello everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome to the IFTTT fintech webinar. And today we'll be talking with Sarah Mathews, the Monzo head of marketing in the US, and George Friedman, the Qapital Co-founder and CEO. We're incredibly excited to have these two guests today. And really to frame our discussion, I think, the folks here at IFT, and I'm Linden Tibbets, the founder and CEO, over the last couple of years have really kind of stumbled onto an incredible kind of ongoing battle. The world of consumer fintech, after decades of stagnation and not a whole lot of change, with the introduction of mobile and really kind of mobile first consumer experiences, has experienced a rapid amount of change just in the last few years. And a new breed of bank, some call them neobanks or challenger banks, has emerged and has begun to really put a lot of pressure on the established banks and brands to begin to also rapidly change and move from what is, really kind of a traditional in-person retail banking experience to something that's really digital first. And so I think there's just a whole lot of excitement happening in the fintech space. And we'll focus a lot today around what digital first or mobile first means in terms of customer engagement, and very specifically driving new behaviors around savings. Got a great agenda today. So we'll do a quick intro with Sarah and George. We'll talk about some data insights that IFT has seen across a number of fintech integrations that we've done. We'll talk a little bit about both Monzo and Qapital, and then we'll dive into our panel discussion, hopefully spending a lot of our time there getting into some of the meaty topics. And of course, we'll at the end open it up for the audience for some questions there. And so please be prepared to type in some of those questions, and we'll try to pick some of the best ones to discuss. But really quick, an intro. I think so many people have used IFT or know IFT over the years, and we're just absolutely thrilled. We now have over 20 million in users. What's happened at IFT over the last couple years has been a very dramatic shift. The idea of if this and that, personal automation is still really core to what it is we do. But what's happened over those last couple of years is we've shifted to really helping the brands themselves. We now have over 630 different brands, both Monzo and Qapital included, on the platform, and really helping them build and introduce third-party integrations to their customers in their own customer experiences, in their apps, in their website, in their emails, and doing that in a way that not just power users can take advantage of, but basically any one of their end users, really pushing towards the mainstream. We put together a very high-level view of some of the different behaviors we see here at IFT around savings. And this is a view across over 75,000 different users that just in 2019 alone have initiated 7.5 million individual savings events. And what that means is in 2019, there were 7.5 million individual events run through IFT that moved some amount of money into a savings account. And the different types of things that users are really kind of using to initiate that savings behavior is incredibly broad. I think one of the learnings for us, and this isn't just in the world of fintech, is that when you think about what are the behaviors that drive valuable engagement for your business, whether that's savings, whether that's getting a user to use a different product beyond your initial offering, is that if you can think horizontal, if you can think about a broad set of behaviors and offer those behaviors or integrations to your customers in the same way that you would think about building features to say low overhead, low maintenance from a developer perspective, then you're going to get a whole lot of value out of that long tail. So even though in that habits bucket you see there, that's about 72% of those savings events, within that habits buckets, we have things as varied as saving once a week or once a day, saving when there's rainy weather, saving when you're using social networks or when you're not using social networks, or even saving when you're in a specific location. So I think the message here is that there's just such a horizontal and long tail way to think about driving the engagement that's valuable for your business. And in fact, I'm not just an advocate here, I'm also a customer. So I've got a savings story, started in 2018 using Qapital, and I've got a very, I would say, kind of stereotypical computer nerd dream of visiting Japan. Had it all my life, and was able to, using a combination of saving once a week and saving in relation to when I completed exercise activities with Strava, so using a connection between Qapital and Strava powered by IFT, I was able to save over $5,000 for that trip to Japan, and was able to take my wife Margaret and I on that trip back in 2019 over the Thanksgiving break. So you know, I'm not just full of hot air here. It works, and I'm living proof. So yeah, we'll jump into a little bit more of an introduction for Sarah and George, and we'll start with Sarah. Take it away, Sarah.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Linden. Hi, everyone. Yes, it's really great to be here today. So with Monzo, you might have seen the hot coral cards if you've been over in Europe or in the UK specifically. We launched in the UK in 2015 as a bank that lives entirely on your phone. So fast forward to today, 60% of people with Monzo use their account on a weekly basis. And we just hit our 4 million customer milestone in the UK. We're onboarding 40,000 new customers every week. We've just started our launch in the US, and we're super excited about how it's been going so far. We've got around 3,000 beta customers at the moment, and we're doing a lot of product development, early user feedback, and we've started to build out what the US product is really going to look like. We're actually rolling out to a lot more customers from this week. We have a 25,000 strong waitlist, so we're really excited for the next months. We could go to the next slide as well, please. Thanks. So Monzo UK and IFT, we've been working with IFT on our UK platform for a while now, and we've started to see customers really beginning to design their own saving goals and then supercharge them with the integrations that we have in place. We have a really successful challenge around the 1p savings challenge, and it's allowing customers not only to benefit from the scheduled saving that IFT enables, but also allowing customers to be part of a community doing the same thing at the same time and reaching the goals together. This shared experience of saving is compounding the effect, and it's something that we're really enjoying to see grow. As Linda mentioned, we're starting to see a lot of different categories, like different habits, such as, oh, when it rains, please like put some money in a pot, or if I go out and buy fast food, please can you save some money for me instead? And we're really excited to see where we can go next with this, and especially in the US as well. So now on to George. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Sarah, and great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And Linden, I love your story, of course. Can't believe you made it all the way to Japan. Actually, 5,000 is about the average that our customers get to within 12 months of using the goal-based savings platform that we have. So great to be here. I want to give you a quick highlight of Qapital's progress to date and what we're about. So we're a challenger bank in the US, 100% focused on the US market, closing in on 2 million customers. We have, of course, all the traditional products that you need for your everyday life that can take care of your entire paycheck and all your needs, checking, savings, and brokerage, investing accounts. But the big difference and differentiation for us is that we built a layer rooted in behavioral economics. So we build features that more often than not come from academic research to really drive towards more money in your pocket at the end of the month. So we're very proud of having saved our customers over $1 billion so far. Next slide, please. So this slide, I think, is pretty good just to give you a sense of how we think about the product suite and the platform. So when we have the goal-based savings platform, we really do three things. First of all, we make it concrete. So you earmark your savings. It's very important. We don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're going. It's going to be very hard for us to succeed in helping you get there. So that's number one. Number two, we make it automatic. And that's where these integrations with IFT Connect come in, and we'll talk about that later on. But we also integrate to your everyday financial life, of course. So roundups, set and forget, all these triggers that make it automatic, because it's very difficult to use willpower to save towards tomorrow and your future. And thirdly, we make it engaging and fun. So lots of triggers towards very emotional goals, things that you really care about, and ability to see progress in an area where a lot of people struggle to go from not having a rainy day fund and not being good at saving to actually achieving real success pretty quickly. So I mentioned the 5,000 or so. You see, if you just use the goal-based short-term savings, our customer saves about $1,500. But if you use the longer-term goals and our checking account, which is also very much focused on helping you curb spending, not spend more, and get you to think about that optimal spending, sweet spot for you to drive additional savings. And for the complete users, we're getting upwards towards 6,000 users. If you really want to dig into things like the IFT Connect and get into things that behavioral economics really proven out to work for people. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give everyone on today a little sense of data. If you use Qapital with our standard rules, our customers get about $235 in savings and have close to 20 app sessions per month. But with the IFT Connect rules, you can see the deep engagement and the additional dollars it drives. And what's really interesting to us, having looked at behavior over the past few years and seeing how natural it is to connect to things you do anyway digitally. So Fitbit is a good example. Fitbit customers can connect and you can explore finding a way to Fitbit, but basically reward yourself for going to the gym or not going to the gym. So you can work on both the carrot and the stick, and it's really powerful in terms of actually getting dollars to get into these goals. I'm sure we'll talk more about some of these integrations later on. That's some high-level numbers from us. Back to Linden.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, George. So yeah, let's, without further ado, let's get into our panel of discussion. And right out of the gate, with words like challenger and neo, I think there's no doubt that this kind of new reality in the fintech world is set up to sound kind of like a battle, and both the perfect storm of kind of change in regulation and the digitization of every product and service, starting in the EU and the UK, starting to see some of that move over to the US as well. So first question for you both, who's going to win? Who's going to win this fintech battle, and why? Sarah.
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting question. I think ultimately looking at it just like who's going to win, I think customers themselves, customers are going to be the winners here. Having a more interconnected financial experience that's empowering people to make informed decisions and set themselves up for success in a way that just seamlessly makes sense with their daily lives, I think is where we're going to start seeing things going. And like ultimately that is customers who will come out best from that. I think looking like slightly longer term, I think we're going to be looking at banks with large balance sheets, but the brand and how much that is prevalent in people's daily lives is going to become much less significant. And then on the other hand, platforms that are focusing on providing the functionality that customers want and need are going to come much more to the forefront of like people's daily experience. So usability, trustworthiness, and reliability are going to be central to the success of these products and services. And whether that's a bank or a fintech platform will remain to be seen.
Yeah, George, anything on your side to add?
So I would just like to add, and I agree with Sarah. I think the one that can help the consumer in a different way really have a chance to have a real impact, because there are billions of people in this world that need better financial tools and services, and it's a real stressor for people. It's the number one worry that we have. It's leading cause of divorce. Not having enough, of a financial cushion is a real problem. So how can we help people get to a better place where they can feel more in control and really have a better day-to-day life? That's the focus. I think everyone should have, and ultimately will be the bank or challenger bank, whatever you want to call it. It's not that black and white. Will ultimately have the biggest impact and win.
Yeah. I think one of the things, and obviously, good point, George. My sense is that the label challenger will probably fade away over the next couple of years, but I think it's fair to say both Monzo and Qapital are kind of in that challenger bucket today. If you were to put yourself in the shoes of the more established brands, the more established banks, how would you compare and contrast kind of the strategies that are being deployed by one or the other, the pros and cons? From there, Sarah, you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I think, again, kind of like going back to what George was saying, but it's like that line is definitely starting to blur. And I think we're seeing like what you would kind of see as like established or traditional banks moving towards like, how do we better serve our customers in the way that they need to be served? Like, is that an additional integration? Is that like an app that is more responsive on a more regular basis? I think the difficulty is being able to iterate and improve at a rate that customers are beginning to expect. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, George? I would, just adding a few thoughts to the starting a new company in fintech today, and we got started in 2015. There were not a ton of APIs available. That has exploded now. So every use case pretty much is covered with a well-funded, well-designed API to really build amazing experience. It's a new phase of financial services that is really once in a lifetime, and it's super fun to be in this space. But it also means we have to be super focused on not just building a bunch of features, like actually solving the fundamental problems that people have. And back to incumbent banks, they are pretty aware of the transformation, of course, and they're really making big bets, either partnering, buying, or building themselves. But what's really obvious here is, of course, mobile and digital experiences. So mobile first, and that is not an easy transition for the incumbent banks. And we have advantage for now, being able to build from scratch and just have the small screen as our focus.
Yeah, and as we began this discussion, talk a little bit about that perfect storm of change in regulation, mobile first or kind of digital first strategies. Maybe talk a little bit about, are the customers themselves changing? What, how are they changing? What do they expect that's different than what they expected maybe 10 years ago? Sarah?
Yeah, I think it's more that just all of us are now used to living on our phones. Like, we live on our phones most of the time, a lot of us, and having a bank or a financial services provider that is in tune with that is kind of what people are coming to expect. And also being able to do things immediately. We're very used to being able to like order something and get it delivered in 10-15 minutes directly from our phones, and banking and financial services are starting to like sit with those same expectations.
Okay, yeah, George, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the customer feedback that I think has been consistent as the apps have been become more sophisticated and more integrated into our everyday life, is that people want everything in one place. That's what we keep hearing at them. So people expect a very pleasant experience. I think trust comes from very well designed and built product, not so much about brand marketing dollars anymore. And I think the ability to build a complete experience, so you can see trade-offs between your financial decisions, because we make them every day, all day, tons of them. So, but without having a concrete understanding of the impact, short and long term. So bringing that into one place, if we talk fintech specifically, and be able to serve your entire paycheck. That's our view of what the customers want, and we're seeing that sort of transition now from unbundling the traditional banking experience, to rebundling again. So first phase of fintech really was about credit score monitoring, right? Or a new type of investing platform. But that's all coming together now, where customers sort of expect one holistic user experience. And none of us are there yet, but certainly where the user demand is pointing us.
Yeah, that's great. Let's move on and talk about the big E word, engagement. And I think what mobile first and digital first really highlights is that relationship with the customer has forever changed, and it's sometimes not just about more, it's about the right kind of engagement. And how do you think about building new product features or new integrations? What's your decision-making process and thought process as it relates to driving more of the right kind of engagement? Sarah?
Yeah, I think this kind of touches back on what George was saying around like, what are the actual customer problems that you're trying to solve, and how can you deliver the most value? And that's kind of the main question that we're always asking when we're like, okay, here's a new integration, or here's a new product feature. And sort of that's initially our starting point. And then from there, it's actually quite a simple step to say, okay, and therefore, are we going to build this thing or not? So yeah, that's kind of how we approach it.
Mm-hmm. George?
Yeah, I think if you look at our approach, slightly deeper than that, just what's the consumer sort of expectation, and can we solve a problem here, is to look at the academic research that I mentioned at the top. So within the field of behavioral econ, there are a lot of very well documented research projects, books, studies that point towards the human psychology is, and as humans, we are very bad at understanding money. Super bad. Like, we don't understand opportunity costs. We can't calculate if I spend $1,000 on a trip, what am I giving up? There's lots of things you can give up. That's the beauty of money, right? But that translation is very hard, and that goes down to micro decisions. So when we think about integrations, we're trying to make it engaging and automatic, so we can actually tap into the power of software and sort of bend your brain a bit or curb certain behavior that we know is bad for you, or you tell us is bad for you. So a lot of focus for us when it comes to integration is like, or can we take this one step further? What if you're taking a ton of Ubers? That probably is too high of a percentage of your weekly discretionary spend here. Can we sort of integrate and see if you can find a happier place, and so forth. So that's the lens that we look at integration when it comes to third-party things like IFTTT Connect, which has been great because there's so much data you can collect. It's been so easy to integrate and see what works for people, and then you can help others that are in similar situations to improve and explore for themselves.
Yeah, that's always great to hear. I think our focus here at IFTTT is to make the act of building a new third-party integration really similar to the act of building a new product feature. You're really doing it for the same reasons, whether it's an integration or a feature, to get your customers to engage, to use your product and services more. Would love to switch over and talk a little bit about whether they're engagements or behaviors or specific brands. What are the behaviors and brands that you both have seen that lead to the most savings? What are your users doing, or what are the contexts that your users find themselves in that lead to them saving a whole lot more? Sarah?
So kind of as I said in the introduction, where we're seeing the most success are these, actually what you would almost see as like quite traditional savings challenges. So save 1 penny a day, save £1 a day, save a cent a day. And these things which actually maybe, even 5 years ago, people would have done with a penny in a jar, being able to set that up and automatically do it, again, without even having to make that action of putting some money in a physical pot. We're starting to see, as George was saying, like that thought process is taken out of the equation, and people's success is also compounded by the fact that, oh, their friend's also doing it, and then they can also, oh, their sister's also doing it, and the community alongside this, all having this shared saving experience, is like something that we're finding really exciting, and where we're definitely seeing the most success from customers.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, for us. Yeah, sorry. No, I agree with Sarah. The thing that we look at a lot is, what are you already doing that we can tap into? Because we have a lot of behaviors, but at the end of the day, maybe 4 or 5 are really sticky and sort of integrated into your everyday life. We have tons of apps on our phones, right? But which ones are you really using on an everyday basis? So how can we connect what you're already doing to money and savings and investing? That's been our approach, to try to find low friction sort of connections to behavior. And it's really interesting to see people using Alexa, for example, with Qapital. That's another use case, or the Google Assistant phrase. That's so tangible. If you use that, you can get a habit going where you do certain things in your home, either reward or penalty, and it means financial transaction will occur based on that, for example. So that's our approach.
Yeah, and then I think our final topic here is actually one that has a lot of overlap with how IFTTT has viewed the world for a long time. I think there's a lot of speculation that the right fintech experience actually becomes much more distributed. It becomes embedded in a lot of the behaviors or services or other apps that customers are using, which is, I think, dovetails very nicely with how IF views the world. Maybe speak a little bit about that prediction. What does that mean for your brand? Obviously, both Monzo and Qapital have built these phenomenal end-user experiences and have been able to drive users back to those singular experiences with a lot of success. But does the future look like those users engaging with your brands in other places or not? Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's difficult to say, but as like our technological lives, they do become at once like more distributed. We're like engaging with different things in different places. But at the same time, I think instead of wanting to maintain 15 or 20 apps and logins, we're going to start looking again for 1 or 2 single aggregating apps that can pull all these different products and services that are under third-party brands into the same place. And I think that's where we see like it's a really interesting tension, and how that then plays out, I think it's going to be something we're going to start seeing happen in the next like 3 or 4 years. It's not to say that we won't be having these like multiple experiences in multiple places, but starting to have like 1 or 2 really core like aggregators of all of these experiences where you can just like go and like check what's going on and like all of these other places in your life is going to be really important, I think.
Yeah, George, different opinion or similar?
No, similar opinion. Definitely see, you know, non-finance brands being integrated into financial fintech apps and where the money is actually being moved more so versus the other way around. But who knows? I don't see us being out there with building our own API, being out there doing a bunch of things in other apps for now to get to the answer of that question. But I do think you know, is the future of fintech embedded? Yes, absolutely, and completely agree with Sarah. Like customers are looking for one integrated place to do everything around their everyday money.
Yeah. So I think it sounds like both of you have a similar opinion that yes, it's embedded, but there's still going to need to be kind of a centralized dashboard or centralized experience by which all those things are embedded in. It's not just kind of a flat distributed embedded model, but it's more of a centralized embedded model.
Yeah, and of course doesn't mean that winner takes it all. We have a lot of different demographic within you know, fintech and different companies approaching different demographics. For example, 1099 workers, you know, freelancers is a huge portion of the U.S. economy at this point and growing, and that's you know, just an angle of the product, or it could be a standalone product that, you know, serving a very unique audience that have very different needs than an employed person, so forth. So that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, great discussion. I'd love to open up to some audience questions. So please type in questions. Obviously, we can't get to them all, but we'll try to cherry pick 1 or 2 here. Yeah. Okay. One that came in that, you know, I think is near and dear to everyone here involves you know, kind of core experiences. It sounds like, you know, the customer experience is so critical. How do you both orient your organizations around building great customer experiences? Sarah, George?
Yeah. So for speaking from Monzo, I think especially even from kind of day one, the customer voice and what customers were actually talking about asking for has been a very central component to like our entire product development, and putting that around sort of everything we talk about, every conversation that we have. It's like, okay, what are customers saying about this? Like, who are our customers? Are they us? Are they our friends? Like, how does this work? And embedding that like really early on in the core of like all of our work streams and all of our processes is something that we've seen as we've grown as a company, has also grown with us and is now kind of just central to everything that we do. So that's, I suppose that's kind of like the core of how we actually orientate every like small decision around like going back to the customer and being like, okay, well, what are we actually doing this for and who are they?
George?
Yeah, I mean, it goes a little bit back to the behavioral econ layer that we really focus on. So customer feedback and panels and really looking at data is great, but it's also very important to look at what actually works, and it's not always intuitive. So we try to not be so focused at whoever yells the loudest on something that they want us to build or so forth, and really look at impact of the feature and spending our time where we can have absolutely the biggest impact around goal setting, automation, and making something rewarding. Those are sort of, that's the lens we look at building, mobile first banking experience.
Yeah. I think we'll have time for one more, and this one, deals with integrations. We've talked a lot about integrations over the panel today. The question is, what is your decision process around which third-party brands to introduce to your end users in that, very precious real estate of the end user experience? George?
So, yeah, sure. So it's a great question. I think for us, we have tried to look at what's really driving impact, right? So the third-party integrations where you can have a large amount of impact. So IFT Connect has been fantastic in that way, where you can access so many rich user experiences and connect things in such a imaginative way, and you can be super creative. That made a lot of sense for us early on, and it's not surprising to me that it's working from a customer impact experience, perspective. But we try to really focus on quality of the API and the approach and so forth, but really like where can this level up to what we're trying to do ultimately with our company and our vision, and have as much impact as possible with hours we spend doing integrations.
Yeah. Sarah, anything on your side?
No, I think, yeah, I would just agree entirely with what George has said. I think making sure that, again, like we've really considered like what is the reason for doing this, why are we doing this, and how is this going to really start to add value is essentially the key focus for us.
Yeah, and here at IFT, we really focus on both helping our the brands we work with, our customers, experiment, try lots of things, use data to figure out what might work, then ultimately really pick a focused set of integrations that really move the needle for their business. It's not about having the most integrations, it's about having the most meaningful integrations. And if that's only one or two, or if that's 20, really kind of depends on the situation. So great, I think that's all we have time for. I want to thank everybody that joined. Obviously want to thank Sarah and George for their time. If you want to learn more about Monzo, they make it really easy for you. It's monzo.com, and so does Qapital. It's qapital.com. And if you'd love to learn more about IFT and what we're talking about, IFT Connect, we make it also easy. It's IFT.com. The 3 T's might throw you off, but it is 3 T's. And click the For Business link in the top right. So yeah, thanks everybody, and have an amazing Thursday.
Great. Thanks a lot, Linden.
Thanks all. Yeah, thanks, Linden. See ya.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, George.